last night, Kiri Allan was involved in a car crash on Evans Bay Parade in Wellington. She was taken into custody and held at the Wellington Central Police Station. She was released at around 1 a.m. this morning. She's been charged with careless use of a motor vehicle and refusing to accompany a police officer, and summons to appear in court at a later date. You'll note that the charges have now been confirmed by the police. They differ to those contained in my statement this morning. The information in my statement this morning was what was provided to my office by Kiri. An infringement notice has also been issued for excess breath alcohol between 250 and 400 micrograms. The Police Commissioner advised the Police Minister that Kiri Allan had been taken into custody around 10 p.m. I was advised shortly thereafter. While her actions are inexcusable, I was given information that she was experiencing extreme emotional distress at the time of the incident. My initial concerns last night were for her immediate safety and well-being. It appears that some of her personal struggles came to a head yesterday and were contributing factors in this incident. I spoke to Kiri the first thing this morning, just before 7 a.m. I advised her that I did not believe that she was in a fit state to hold a ministerial warrant. She expressed remorse and had already sent me a message just before that, indicating that she intended to resign. She understood that retaining her ministerial warrant was untenable, especially for a Justice Minister to be charged with criminal offending. Kiri is now heading home and will be taking time to consider her future in politics. I recently provided Kiri with the opportunity to address her mental health issues. After taking some time out, she told me she was ready to return to work. Those who saw her last week in the House and here in the Theatrette launching the ram raid policy would have observed her at the top of her game. Last night's incident, however, is evidence that there are not always quick fixes when it comes to mental health, and things can flip very quickly and without warning. The best thing for Kiri right now is to focus on her whānau and her well-being and to be away from Parliament. I'll confirm the reallocation of her portfolios later this afternoon.
Prime Minister, how damaging is this for the Labour Party, given we're only 3 months out from the election?
That really hasn't been a part of my thinking at all in the last few hours.
How much responsibility do you need to take for this, given that she ultimately is your responsibility and she came back to work far too soon?
I don't think you can form that judgment. I required Kiri to take some time off. You may recall at the time she was resistant to that. She came back to work after receiving counselling with indications, very strong indications to me that she was ready to take on the job. And you would have seen last week that actually I had no evidence to question that. We provided additional coaching and counselling and support to her to make sure that she was ready to come back to work. And as she indicated last week through her actions, I didn't really have any basis to question that.
Prime Minister, how is Kiri doing and what supports have been put around her today?
I spoke to her on the phone this morning. It would be fair to say it was a difficult conversation. She's clearly not in a good space, so it was not a long conversation. We have people with her and around her at the moment supporting her.
Is that the reason that the court date has been set for a later date, that emotional distress?
That's ultimately a question for the police.
And now you've, in a succession of weeks, you've lost a number of ministers. Does your government retain the confidence of the public? Is it time for a snap election?
There will be an election on the 14th of October. That has not been, front of mind for me in the last few hours.
The confidence of the public?
Well, they elected us.
Prime Minister, just in terms of the reallocation of portfolios, is it your thinking, like it has been with previous ministers, that they're going to be reallocated amongst your current ministers, or are you going to bring somebody else into cabinet?
We've got 5 sitting weeks to go until the election. election, and then obviously there'll be a government formation period after the election. I don't think now's the right time to be bringing new people into the ministry this close to a general election.
Are you not worried that you're loading up current ministers with just too much on their plate?
I think we have to consider this in perspective. There's, typically around 28 ministers in the ministry. We'll be 2 ministers down heading into the election. I have absolute confidence that the remaining ministers in the ministry will be able to cover that workload until election day. It is only 5 parliamentary weeks to go.
Can you talk us through the timeline, how you became involved when you first were notified?
I received a phone call from my Chief of Staff just after 10 o'clock, and then while I was on the call to him, I got a call from the Minister of Police who had further information. And so we then had a series of phone calls. I wasn't able to speak to Kiri directly. She was still at the police station.
What was your understanding of the incident, and what you guys now are thinking about it?
The facts weren't particularly clear last night. They have become clearer this morning. I guess what had happened was contested, and so now we've got clarity around that.
Prime Minister, where was Kiri Allan travelling from and to, and around the refusing to accompany a police officer? Can you give us more details around that?
I can't really provide any more details around that. I simply don't know the answer to the first question. The second question, again, is probably more appropriately directed to the police. I would note probably the bit that doesn't seem to be contested by anyone is that she was in a very distressed state.
Prime Minister, can you please outline what support Kiri was getting before this incident, and what made you think she was ready to come back to work?
Kiri has been receiving counselling. She's been receiving professional support. We made sure that was the case. I made sure that was the case. Ultimately, mental health is incredibly challenging in the sense that when someone comes to you, says that they feel that they're on top of things, exhibits clearly, all of the signs to suggest that they are, that puts you in a very, very difficult position. And so, I think, as you would have seen last week, Kiri was showing signs that she had gotten on top of things. I think, it's a terrible set of circumstances.
Was there any advice from clinicians that she was not ready to come back, or that she was ready to come back?
I didn't speak to the clinicians directly. Obviously, I was, relying on what she was telling me about that process.
Just returning to Craig's question, what was contested last night?
The facts were simply not clear as to exactly what had happened.
Are you able to elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
It wasn't clear whether she had been the one who was driving, whether exactly what had happened, and I didn't get clarity on that until this morning.
Did she say that she wasn't driving initially?
The problem is I couldn't speak to her directly last night, but there was some suggestion that she may have said that she wasn't driving. Now, of course, I couldn't verify any of that because I couldn't speak to her. So until I actually knew what had happened and had it verified by the police and then ultimately verified by her, I wasn't in a position to really do anything, form any judgment on that.
So she wasn't back driving?
That is, well, she has been charged and has not contested that she was driving.
Did she leave the scene before being arrested?
Again, that's a question for the police.
Prime Minister, do you know when the last time the Minister was arrested?
As a Member of Parliament or a member of the Labour Party, what happens now? Has she gone back to Whakatane, and what does that mean for her future as the representative there?
Ultimately, she's indicated that she's going to go away and have some thinking about that. I'm sure at an appropriate time, you and I will have another conversation about that. Clearly, I made the judgment this morning was not the right time to have that conversation with her.
Prime Minister, do you know when the last time a Minister of the Crown was arrested?
No, I don't. Sorry, I haven't got that information.
Would you your cabinet, who you're meeting with shortly, and then caucus tomorrow morning, are going to have a lot of feelings, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions. What is your message going to be to them?
Obviously, everyone's still processing this, including me, but we will need to focus on the job that we have ahead of us. Right now, I know everybody this morning is very concerned for Kiri. We'll make sure that we get support around Kiri. We'll make sure that we manage our way through this process, and then, of course, we will need to focus. We've got a job to do as a government.
Was she alone? Can we just clarify? Was she alone?
That is my understanding. But look, I mean, I'm not in a position to verify any of the facts, and so I'll be absolutely upfront about that. And so those questions are best directed to the police.
Could you give us a sense of your headspace right now and when you learned about this? How are you feeling? What are you thinking right now?
Last night, my primary concern was for Kiri's well-being, and so we made sure that we had people at the police station as soon as she was released to accompany her, and that is, as of the conversations I've been having with her this morning, that is still a concern for me. We've got to make sure we support her through this immediate period.
Usually the Prime Minister last night, she
Thomas.
might not have been driving the vehicle. How was that confusion? How did that confusion land on your report?
I received conflicting messages, and so I was not in a position to verify any of them. So certainly, I considered whether to make a statement last night. The thing is, I just didn't have any robust information on which to do that.
What's your message to the public going to be now that you've lost 4 ministers? Your message to the public is in it for you, but
Look, I'll talk more about that this afternoon. Ultimately, we'll be focused on the job that we have ahead of us. But right now, as I've indicated, my focus for the last few hours has been on Kiri.
Prime Minister, can I ask, how easy would it be for your existing pool of ministers to take on this extra work, since they've taken on extra work already, and could that cause any issues to have to be deferred?
No, I'm confident that the ministers in the ministry, as I've indicated, it's 2 ministers out of 28. As I've indicated, I'm confident that they'll be able to carry the extra workload. We are talking about a period of 5 sitting weeks.
Minister, you said there was conflicting reports as to whether she was driving or not, but there was also no one else in the car with her. So was there anyone else at the scene?
Well, like I said, Jenna, I didn't have good information. More information has come to light since then. I've been able to put more pieces of the puzzle together. But at that point, at 10 o'clock last night, I still had a range of different pieces of information. I understand Kiri was communicating directly with people outside of the police station as well. I didn't have a clear picture of that. Now I have a much clearer picture.
Was it the case on that Kiri Allan gave information that it turned out was incorrect?
I simply am not in a position to be able to provide a judgment on that.
What was her explanation for her behaviour from your conversations with her this morning? Did she say it was self-destructive?
Look, I don't want to go into that, but she shared some details around her mental health with me, which I'm not going to share.
Who was Kiri Allan contacting directly from the police station, and how did you sort of become aware that was happening?
A number of people, but I won't share all of the details of that either. She was clearly not in a good state.
You said you had people meet her at the police station. Can you share who that was?
No.
Are you confident stunting that you're standing up there talking about your Justice Minister being taken into police custody?
Obviously, I'm very sad for Kiri. Kiri is an incredibly talented person who clearly has been battling some demons and has not won that battle.
How are you feeling about all of this, Prime Minister?
As I've indicated, I'm gutted for Kiri. I'm concerned for her well-being. That's the primary concern. Later on this afternoon, obviously, we can talk about the wider implications of that. But for now, my focus has been on supporting her, on dealing with the immediate consequences of the situation, and then we'll go on from there. I'm going to have to dash in a minute, but look.
Do you expect that you'll have more details this afternoon?
Ultimately, I don't think that I'm going to be the one to share those details, because it is a police matter. It's more appropriate for them to share further details.
Was Kiri Allan arrested at the scene?
I don't know. Okay, thanks everyone.